but we will begin with college football and a lot of stuff that you have in the guide, which is coming out later on this week. First of all, it's good to see you. How are you? You having a good summer?
Yeah, it's been a great summer. Playing some golf. Going to head down to the Del Mar racetrack north of San Diego this weekend.
Good
Paul's never been there.
Complete embarrassment.
Can't believe that.
Yep.
20-some years in Vegas, you've never been to Del Mar.
I know.
Get out of the house.
Absolutely. You can rip me for
it's
that.
going well. We got the VSiN golf tournament coming up on August 12th and a lot of stuff going on. Man, I'm fired up because it's football season. You know, we got a game on Thursday night.
Sure.
It's here now. We got past the slowest days of the summer, and now it's all the good stuff again.
Okay, so why don't we begin in college football? Why don't we start with the Pac-12?
Sure.
Because we talked about this, at the beginning of the show, how who knows what this conference is going to look like next year or even beyond.
Yeah.
The rumblings here of Arizona, ASU, and Utah maybe going to the Big 12. And we know that Oregon and Washington, they're not going to sign anything long-term. But on paper, at least this year, I think the Pac-12 is loaded, and it's a really good conference.
That's the best I think the Pac-12 has been in a long time, probably since Pete Carroll was coaching in the league, at USC. The top 4 teams in the Pac-12 have elite quarterbacks. USC with Caleb Williams, Washington with Michael Penix, who was number 2 in the country in passing yards last year, Oregon with Bo Nix, who stepped it up when he stepped down from the SEC to Pac-12 to face weaker defenses. And Cameron Rising, who's coming off an ACL tear in the Rose Bowl at Utah, and the Utes have lost back-to-back Rose Bowls. But if you look at those top 4, USC, Oregon, Washington, Utah, it wouldn't surprise me if any of those 4 teams played their way into the playoff. Now, I think, Mitch, there's a risk that the top 4 teams are going to cannibalize each other. And again, the Pac-12 could get left out of the playoff. But those 4 teams are legit. And then the next 3 teams are pretty good too. Oregon State, UCLA, and Washington State. I think you got 7 really good teams in the Pac-12. And I didn't even mention all the good quarterbacks in this conference. I think this is going to be a great conference to watch this year, and the Pac-12 is going to go out with a bang.
In our guide, Zach Cohen has Utah to make the playoff and win the Pac-12. Dave Tooley has Utah to win the Pac-12, and in the title it's 70-1. And also Tim Murray has Oregon State over the total. So, the depth and maybe, a lot of people are picking USC. But what do you think about the possibility of a playoff run from the conference? Can they finally get there?
Well, I think USC can get there. And Washington.
You do trust the defense?
Well, defense is better. You got Mason Cobb, who's a stud linebacker at Oklahoma State, who transferred in, and Bear Alexander, defensive tackle from Georgia. So, and that's only 2 of the transfers. The transfer portal and the NILs have helped USC as much or more than any team in the country, right? Lincoln Riley's got everything he needs to win, including the best quarterback in college football, the number 1 overall draft pick, who's basically the Patrick Mahomes of college football. If Lincoln Riley can't get to the playoff with this team, I don't know when he's going to get there. I like USC quite a bit, and I think the defense actually should be good enough. Now, last year, the USC defense was really good at forcing turnovers. Trojans were plus 22 in turnover margin. I don't think that number's sustainable, but I didn't think that defense really got pushed around maybe until the Utah game late in the season. So, yeah, that's a concern. The schedule's a little bit of a concern because you got so many good teams in the Pac-12. But when you have a quarterback like Caleb Williams, I think you got a big head start over a lot of these other teams. And Lincoln Riley's been to the playoff before. At Oklahoma, he just hasn't won when he's got there. I like USC quite a bit. And, in fact, when I did my top 25 power rankings, I did my ratings, and I had USC – I had number 2 or 3, and I combined my ratings with Paul Stone's ratings, and that's how I came up with the top 25 because Paul spends so much time on that stuff. His ratings are probably a little bit sharper than mine, so I combined them. Paul had USC a little bit lower, but I think he had USC at number 5 or number 6 right there. So, yeah, this is a team that could get to the playoff, no doubt about it. Now, DraftKings opened the win total for USC at 9.5, which I thought was too low, and that quickly got bet up to 10. It's always tough to bet over those high win totals like 10. So I'm not going to say there's a lot of value there, but I think this USC team's going to be sensational. Washington has got one of the best under-the-radar type of coaches in the country in Kalen DeBoer. He took over an offense that averaged 21.5 points a game and jacked it up to 39 points a game in his first season as coach with Michael Penix as quarterback. And Huskies got their top 2 wide receivers back, too. That's going to be an explosive offense. There's a lot going on here in the Pac-12. It's unfortunate this conference is falling to pieces.
Yeah.
But this last season's going to be great.
Okay, so Utah, the schedule to begin, they do play Florida. They get their revenge game this year. That's going to be in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
That's on a Thursday. How about week 2? They get a couple of extra days of rest, but they have to go play at Baylor. That's not going to be easy.
That's a tough game.
Sure. So I'll tie in one team from this conference to another team in the Big Ten and ask you this. Is there too much hype on Oregon State and or Wisconsin?
I don't think Wisconsin. I love the Badgers.
You're not the only one.
You know that. We've talked about it. Phil Steele, I guess, was he loves the Badgers. I know some other people who do too. Here's the thing about Oregon State. Last year at this time, that was one of my favorite win totals in all of college football. But the win total last year was 6.5. Now it's 8.5. So you're not getting a bargain on the Beavers this time around. And who knows what DJ Uyunglele can do at quarterback. He was 22-6 as Clemson's starter, but he had a much better team around him. I think the one thing some people are going to overlook with Oregon State is the defense was outstanding last year. That was the defense that allowed 20 points per game, held USC to 17, and 9 starters are back. So it's not all about the offense. And, hey, I don't know if there's a coach in college football who's done a better job in the last 5 or 6 years than Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. He took over one of the worst programs in the country, and he's been, winning double-digit games in Corvallis.
He's excellent.
But,
excellent.
Mitch, to answer your question, I lean over 8.5 on Oregon State, but, like I said, a year ago was 6.5, and I just don't think that number is a bargain on the Beavers right now. We can talk about some other teams. You want me to answer the Wisconsin question?
Well, you got to be concerned. Everyone loves them over.
Over 8.5, and I bet them also at plus, I think, 125, was it, to win the Big Ten West?
Love the bet. Badgers should win the Big Ten West. Look at the schedule. Okay, that's one thing. You spent a lot of time analyzing these schedules. And, okay, the Badgers might get tripped up on the road once. They're playing at Washington State, Purdue, Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota. That Minnesota game's always a tricky one at the end. It's possible the Badgers could lose that one. I don't think they're going to lose any of those other road games. They were 17-point home favorites last year in Madison when they got upset by Washington State. I like Wisconsin so much because you've got Braylon Allen and Chez Mellusi, 2 of the best running backs in the Big Ten, one of the best offensive lines. Tanner Mordecai from SMU comes over as a talented quarterback who can throw it. I know you watch a lot of Wisconsin football. Both of you guys do. That offense had gotten so stale and stagnant in the Paul Chryst era with Graham Mertz at quarterback. The forward pass is going to be a threat. And I'm not saying they're going to spread the field and it's going to be like basketball on grass or anything like that, but the pass is going to be a threat that's going to open up the running game. Luke Fickell's going to build a good defense. He's got plenty of personnel back. The home schedule, I can tell you right now, October 28th, I'm probably going to be on Wisconsin against Ohio State as a home dog. And I do like the 8.5 here. This is one of, if not my favorite, one of my favorite win totals. It was the first win total I bet.
The only team that could possibly upend them would be Iowa, you think, with McNamara now the quarterback? And, Iowa, you want to talk about bad offense.
Yeah. That's probably going to be a 17-14, 2017 type of game. Who knows? Iowa always capable of beating anybody in an ugly type of game. But think about it, Paul. If you look at that schedule, Wisconsin would really have to fall on its face to finish 8-4.
Yes. I know. I agree.
It has to be a major disappointment this year.
Right.
I do think, based on what you said, and I gave Paul Chryst plenty of chances there. It was time to go. I honestly do believe, I hope this isn't my heart talking, I hope it's my head. I think going from Chryst to Fickell is maybe the biggest upgrade in the country.
Huge upgrade.
I couldn't even watch the Badgers play anymore. I couldn't do it. I had to tap out because the offense, it's like the same thing for 10 years. Come on.
It was sick.
All right.
Yeah, if that's not the biggest coaching upgrade, I would say Jeff Brom at Louisville taking over for Scott Satterfield. That's a big one too.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.